folks, get ready. Because today we're going way back to, like, first grade.
Oh.
But with a twist,
Okay.
we're diving deep into this idea of behavior modification and how a simple classroom game can have, like, these crazy long-term effects on people's lives.
Hmm.
Yeah. So they think excerpts from a behavior management manual,
Okay.
research articles, a lesson plan guide,
Oh, wow.
the whole shebang.
Yeah, this is interesting because, we always think about managing behavior in the classroom, but to think that this game, this GBG, the good behavior game, could set kids up for a healthier and, frankly, a more successful future is kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. And before we get all caught up in the rules of the game, let's take a step back.
Okay.
Behavior Mod 101. What is it and where do we even begin?
Right. So you might think we'd start by really digging into the psychological reasons behind a kid's behavior. That's what those traditional approaches like psychoanalysis tried to do. But the research going all the way back to the 50s and 60s actually showed that this approach wasn't really making a difference in how kids acted, particularly in the classroom.
So if figuring out all the whys behind behavior wasn't working, then what was?
Well, they flipped the script completely. Behavior modification says, let's look at the behaviors we can see and measure and then figure out how to change them.
Okay.
So instead of getting lost in a kid's psyche, we're focusing on the concrete actions. Forget vague labels like lazy.
So instead of saying a kid is lazy, we look at how often they turn in their work, for example.
Exactly, you got it. We need to be able to track these specific behaviors and see if what we're doing is actually making a difference.
Makes sense. So how does this all connect back to the good behavior game? I have a feeling this is where things get really interesting.
Right, absolutely. The good behavior game, or GBG, is like the perfect example of behavior modification in action. And we've got this awesome manual that lays out all the details.
Okay, game on. What are the rules I'm picturing? Like dodgeball with
No.
a side of psychology.
Haha, not quite dodgeball, but just as strategic. Okay, so picture this. The teacher divides the class into teams, and they really try to balance the personalities.
Sure.
The manual even suggests that shy kids should be chosen as team leaders.
I love that I was a super shy kid myself, so I can only imagine how much that would help me.
Exactly. It's not just about behavior. It's about building social skills, too.
Right. It's like setting them up for success on multiple levels.
Yeah. And then they make the rules of the game super clear, often, like with a giant poster in the classroom.
Okay.
But these rules aren't about getting good grades or anything academic. It's all about behavior.
So stuff like raising your hand, being respectful to classmates, staying in your seat, unless you're allowed to get up, all those things that create a good learning environment for everybody.
You got it. But here's the twist during the game. The teacher actually awards points for rule violations.
Hold up. They get points for being bad. That seems counterintuitive.
Right.
Thought we're trying to encourage good behavior.
I know, right? It does. But think about it. Kids are competitive by nature, and no one wants to be on the losing team, right?
True.
So the game uses that competitive spirit as fuel for good behavior.
Ah, I see. So it's all about motivation just coming from a different angle.
Oh.
So what happens to the winning team? Do they get a gold star or something?
Think a little smaller, but just as exciting to a first or second grader. Stickers, candy, little toys.
Yeah.
Immediate, tangible rewards that kids love.
Right.
And then later on, the winning team might get extra playtime or a chance to choose a class activity.
Ah, so they get that like instant gratification, then a little delayed gratification too. That's clever. But how do we know if this whole game thing is actually working? Is the teacher like secretly spying on them or what?
That's where it gets really smart. They have these things called weekly probes.
Weekly probes.
Yeah, the teacher secretly observes and records the student's behavior for a specific amount of time every week. And the kids have no idea they're being watched.
So it's like a pop quiz, but for behavior.
Exactly. You don't want the kids putting on a show just because they know the teacher is looking.
Right. You want to see if that good behavior is sticking even when they think no one is watching.
That's the goal, right?
Right.
Real lasting change.
Okay, so they're playing the game, running rewards.
Yeah.
The teacher's keeping tabs on their progress. But does this actually have any long-term impact? I mean, we're talking behavior changes that last into adulthood, right?
It sounds wild. I know, but there was this groundbreaking study done in Baltimore where they followed a group of students who played the good behavior game way back in first grade.
Seriously. This is like something out of a sci-fi movie. A game in first grade changes the trajectory of someone's entire life.
It really is that powerful. The results were astonishing.
Okay, I need to hear this. What did they find?
So the students who played the GBG, especially the boys who started out with some behavioral challenges, they had significantly lower rates of drug and alcohol abuse, smoking, antisocial behavior, even suicide ideation compared to those who didn't play the game.
It's amazing, right? Like, we always hear how important those early years are, but this is like concrete proof.
It really is, and it just shows you how important it is to address behavior early on.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that researchers are still trying to figure out is why the games seem to have a bigger impact on boys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the girls in the study didn't see the same level of benefit.
Hmm. That is interesting. Any theories as to why that might be?
Well, there are a few ideas floating around out there. It could be how boys and girls react differently to competition, or maybe it's about societal expectations.
Right.
Or it could even be about the types of behaviors that the game targets.
Interesting.
It's a bit of a mystery for sure.
Yeah, definitely something worth exploring further. Maybe that's a whole other deep dive waiting to happen.
Exactly.
But okay, back to the GBG. It's been around for a while, right?
Yeah,
Has it changed at all since that original study in Baltimore?
it has actually, and that's one of the really cool things about it.
Right.
It's not stuck in the past. It's constantly being refined and adapted based on new research.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of approach.
Not at all. There was this really cool study in the 90s, also in Baltimore, where they combined the GBG with a more advanced curriculum.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they've also seen success adapting it for classrooms in Oregon and even the Netherlands.
Wow, it's gone international.
It has. It's really gained some serious traction.
That's awesome. It shows you the power of a good idea, right?
Right.
So we've talked about how to play the game, the long-term impact, but what about the nitty-gritty of making it work in the classroom?
Yeah.
How do teachers keep kids engaged and motivated?
That's a great question. And it turns out that even the smallest adjustments can have a big impact.
Okay.
There was this one study that looked at different types of feedback teachers gave during the game.
Oh, interesting.
They compared no feedback at all, just visual feedback, like using a chart to track points, vocal feedback only, and then a mix of both.
All right, spill the beans. Which one worked best?
The findings were actually kind of surprising. Vocal feedback, either alone or with visuals, was the most effective.
Really? So just saying the rule out loud was more powerful than like a visual reminder?
Yeah, it was. And it's something researchers are still trying to figure out. It might be because vocal feedback is just so immediate and attention-grabbing.
Right, like if a kid is starting to get a little rowdy, hearing the teacher say, hey, remember team 2, we're working quietly? It's probably more effective than just seeing a tally mark on a chart.
Exactly. It's like that gentle nudge that brings their attention right back to the game.
Right. It's interesting how those subtle things can make such a difference.
It is.
So it sounds like the good behavior game isn't just some rigid cookie-cutter approach. It takes some finesse.
Yeah.
The teacher really has to adapt it to their classroom.
Exactly. The best teachers aren't just delivering information. They're creating a positive environment where kids can really thrive.
Absolutely. Speaking of thriving, there's another interesting aspect of behavior modification that we should touch on. This idea of shifting from external rewards like stickers or candy to internal motivation.
Right, because ideally we want kids to behave well because they understand why it's important, not just because they're getting a reward.
Exactly. But how do you make that jump from stickers to something more intrinsic?
Well, that's where the good behavior game really shines. Remember how we talked about it evolving throughout the year? One way it evolves is by gradually shifting from those immediate tangible rewards to more intangible ones.
Okay.
So maybe it starts with stickers and candy, but then as the kids get better at the game, as their behavior improves, the rewards become things like being team leader, choosing a class activity, even just receiving praise from the teacher.
Oh, so it's like they level up in the game of good behavior.
Exactly. And as they level up, those external rewards become less and less important.
I see.
The real reward, the good feeling they get from behaving well and being part of a positive classroom that takes over.
That's awesome. So we've covered a lot in this deep dive so far.
We have.
We started with behavior modification. 101 explored the ins and outs of the good behavior game, uncovered its incredible long-term effects. We saw how it's evolved and adapted over time, and even got into the nitty-gritty details of how feedback can make or break its effectiveness. It's pretty amazing to think that something as simple as a game can have such a profound and lasting impact on kids' lives.
It really is. It makes you wonder what other simple interventions are out there just waiting to be discovered and put to good use.
Right, like if a game can help reduce drug abuse, violence,
Right.
even suicide, imagine the possibilities.
Exactly. It's incredible.
So for our listeners out there who are as intrigued by this as I am, I highly recommend checking out the source material we've got. It's really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And hey, maybe you'll even be inspired to give the good behavior game a try in your own life.
Yeah.
You never know what kind of ripple effect you might create.
Yeah, it's like that butterfly effect, right? One tiny thing can set off a whole chain of events. Exactly. And in this case, that butterfly might be something as small as a kind word, a moment of encouragement, or just really listening to a child.
It's a good reminder that we can all make a difference.
We can, and even if you don't work with kids directly, the stuff we talked about today about behavior modification and the good behavior game, it can apply in so many different areas.
Right.
If you're a parent, a teacher, a manager, or just someone who wants to understand people better, this deep dive has given you some incredible tools.
It really has a huge thank you to our expert for walking us through this fascinating world of behavior modification. It's been an awesome journey.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and who knows, maybe you'll even give the good behavior game a try in your own life.